I'd like to talk to you today about failure because I've experienced failure, you've experienced failure, every single person in the world has failed at something, and I'm here to tell you that failure is absolutely necessary. I mean, for starters, successful people fail more than the beginner has even tried. I can't tell you the amount of times when, let's say I've been online doing some kind of live stream and I make a mistake and someone in the chat is telling me how terrible I am and pointing out the fact that I failed at that thing. And it's very easy to say that, but genuinely, everybody fails. The best person in the world at something failed a million times more than the beginner to get to where they are. So failure isn't something that we should avoid. It's actually, I think, something we should accept, expect, and aim for to an extent. Now, I'm not saying you start something with the aim to fail, but by searching out opportunities where it's possible that you do, you can learn things, get a fresh perspective, and ultimately get better at whatever it is you want to do and whatever you fail at. I feel like that's the difference between winners and losers. Winners crave failure. They crave a challenge. I feel like failure and challenge can almost be synonymous in a sense. If it's going to be really challenging, you're going to fail at some point. Whereas losers, it sounds so harsh, but they run away from failure. They do anything to avoid making that mistake. But in avoiding failure, they avoid action, and inaction is worse than failing, in my opinion, in most circumstances. Sometimes you've got just an abysmal failure. Let's say you intentionally did something mean, horrible, it was a fail. That's completely different. I'm talking about where you try your best and it simply doesn't work out. I think one thing that can help is to reshape your own mindset when it comes to failure. A lot of people, if they get something wrong, they beat themselves up. They might never go out of their comfort zone again. I think if you change your approach and say, you know what? I can't wait to fail again because it means I'm doing something challenging. It means I can learn something. I mean, I'm somewhat of a prime example. I made over 40 YouTube channels before the one that is now my full-time job that I made 9 years ago. And Exhibit A, here's another new channel. I don't think failure is a black and white definition either. By all intents and purposes, those 40 YouTube channels were failures because I didn't achieve my goal of making it a career. But as far as I was concerned, I had fun with every single one. And as someone who wasn't expecting to get a career out of doing YouTube and someone that did it for the enjoyment out of it, I would say that every single channel I made was a success because I had fun making them. And everything I learned from every channel that I made all added up to the channels that I made that were a success or weren't a failure. I learned from the mistakes. I learned from those failures. I can't remember where I heard the saying from, but it's something along the lines of a sailor isn't made on calm waters or in calm oceans. And it's true. If you have smooth sailing your entire life, you're not going to build character, have experience, and be able to handle setbacks. It's like the classic. If you are a child born into a mega rich family with a trust fund, you have a silver spoon in your mouth since birth, you don't necessarily appreciate things as much as you would otherwise if you had to work hard for it. And that's not to say you can't be a good person if you were born wealthy. That's absolutely not the case. But I would go as far as to say it is impossible to feel as grateful for things as someone who had to work for it because you simply don't know what it takes, and that doesn't make you a bad person. But then it goes without saying that sometimes those people, when something does go wrong that's out of their control, they don't know how to handle it. They throw their toys out of the pram. They start acting like a child even though they're a grown adult because they've never really faced adversity. I think failure is brilliant for learning, encouraging creativity, and inspiring you to work harder if that's necessary. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes, especially in the moment, failure stings, it hurts. But retrospectively, you can look back and learn from your mistakes. And in some cases, with regards to failure, you can take accountability. You might not have known that something you were doing was wrong, and then you look back and think, I know why that failed. It was my fault. I did this, this, and this when I could have done this, this, and this. You know what? Let me try that. Let's make a new thing. Let's pivot to another thing. Oh, what do you know? This is slightly less of a fail than that previous thing was. I mean, that's what I've done in my life. So I think failure can be good or it can be bad. I think it's bad when you're not learning something or holding yourself accountable. If you're just doing stupid things, the blame is at your door. when you're failing there, and you do need to be held accountable. There are certain times where failure is sort of not an option. It's unacceptable. Let's say you're at your job, there's a specific task you need to do. It's the same thing every time, and then for whatever reason, whether you're not paying attention or negligence, you do it wrong. There are consequences to that fail, and it's not so much about learning. It's just, hey, let me hold my hands up. I got it wrong, and hope the consequences aren't as severe as they could be. I think the best thing to do is to redefine failure and what it means for you, because it shows you what you care about and perhaps where you need to go. If you try something out, turns out you're terrible at it, we could call it a fail, but you don't care all that much, then maybe it's not for you. If you try a new hobby and you really want to get that little bit better and you just can't do it, but you're hungry to improve, then that's something you should focus your attention on. I mean, I myself, I'm going to be a dad in a couple of months, and there's going to be so many mistakes that I'm going to make. I'm going to make tons of mistakes, but I'm keen to learn. And every time I fail, I'm going to take what I've learned and try and be better. So that's why failure is necessary. I think on the one hand, because it's unavoidable and you've got to accept it, it is necessary, but also it's a crucial part of improving as a human and developing who you are, because otherwise you'd never change, and no one is the finished article. No one ever is, but everyone who got any amount better at something always failed along the way. So embrace failure, redefine it, and I think you'll see the benefits from that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are some of the failures that you've had in your life that you're actually grateful for? I'd love to hear it, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.